Hi everyone, welcome to the Beyond Deadlines podcast, where we tackle challenges that planning and schedule leaders come across on a day-to-day basis. My name is Greg Lawton, and I'm the CEO of an AI schedule management company called Nodes and Links.
And I'm Micah, a planning and scheduling manager for Intel.
Today, we are doing something a bit different. Normally, I say every podcast is designed to give you strategies and tactics you can implement right away, but today we're having a general conversation. We're going to talk about what's happening in the market, the biggest movers and shakers, and maybe look back a little bit at 2023 and reflect on what's happened and what's coming up in 24. So with that, Micah, first topic, go.
Well, yeah, if we start with 2023 and a look back, how about this podcast and a newsletter that we launched? Pretty wild.
Are we at 1 million yet? Because I remember you and I having a conversation in February saying, Sundays are boring. I'd like to let's do something fun that helps people. And then we started writing stuff in like February, March. And then we launched the podcast, we launched the newsletter about February, March, April. And then we launched the podcast middle of the year. And I remember you messaging me about 3 months ago saying, oh my God, we've just passed 250,000 people who've like listened or read or something like that.
Yeah, they were impressions. So we don't have I want to preference everyone out there. We are not making millions of dollars and we do not have millions of listeners. We haven't gotten that Oprah check yet, but one day. No, I think the growth has been pretty great. I mean, there was definitely a demand out there for more planning and scheduling content that is a bit more modern, a bit more helpful, covers a gambit of stuff, it looks like. And I think as I reflect back, the people who have reached out to us and asked for support, looking for job support, looking for specific, career guidance, looking just to want to talk tech, that's been really, really cool. Such a broad, wild. If one lesson people can take away is it's such a broad, wild world of scheduling out there. There's scheduling happening on every single construction project around the globe, trillions of dollars, and there's so many people out there doing exactly what you're doing. It just blows my mind. I knew it was big, but then you have these like feedback loops. And wow, this is really big.
Completely. Actually, to kind of double click on the, people contacting us, because that actually makes it really real, because you and I don't sit here on a Sunday and record purely for the fun of putting each other in the hot seat or interviewing people. Interviewing people's cool because we learn new things. But actually, when you get those messages from people coming in saying, that was actually super interesting, you helped me in real life. Like, for me, I've got to remember that the internet is other people at the other end of it. It's not just some black hole of no laws or anything like that. It is you've got real people that you're trying to help.
Yeah.
And when
one of our favorite episodes is Junior Scheduler to 200K.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That dramatically changes people's lives. You just went from making $80,000-$90,000 a year to double that if you implemented those strategies and they worked out for you. That's life-changing.
Mm-hmm. And what the hypothesis you and I had at the start is that we figured it out, but other people haven't. It's not rocket science. Like, we've been lucky enough to kind of be in the right place at the right time, in that we had really good mentors and people guiding us doing it. And then when people reach out and it turns out that, it literally is that just no one is telling them how to do it. And all you've got to do is put the effort in. And, whether or not it's 2 years or 5 years or whatever, you'll get there if you last and you're good enough and you put the effort in. I think that's the big thing here. I don't, my worldview has changed now. I don't see 200K as a lot of money personally now, but that's because you and I are thinking on the next level of things.
I mean, based on my surroundings, I still feel like 200K is a big deal. If you are listening right now and not viewing, I am in, I don't even know how to describe it, but it is
He's in a
very
cabin in the
interesting.
woods, and he's.
Yeah.
We joked before this that he said I'm on an American getaway in a cabin in the woods, and a lot of images came to my mind of what that could mean.
Yeah. Wrong podcast. Quickly switch. I want to make it out of here in one piece. Well, let's switch topics a little bit, because I feel like we talk a lot about planning and scheduling and career development. And this is the random show, so let's get random. I think one of the big things in my mind that happened in this last year, AI, that blew up and absolutely changed the game to me. I mean, it brought something that I think was out of people's grasps and brought it to their fingertips, and they could actually use it. I mean, I wasn't around and using it when the internet first kicked off, but I got to imagine that's kind of the same sort of reaction or same sort of interaction, I guess would be a better way to put it. You took something that only, could be done at college campuses or military installations, wherever it was where the internet actually existed. Go look it up on Wikipedia. And then all of a sudden you had Bob, Bill, and Susan at their home logging into AOL. You've got mail. And so to me, that if I look back at, 2023, I mean, it was just a bomb.
2023. So that I have half of my body in the projects world and half of my body in the venture capital world. And like venture capital is all about disruption and big tech. So, if I look back over the last 15 years, it was social media was the big revolution around the kind of noughties. And then you had the banking revolution after the 2009. Then you had the crypto and automation revolutions. So things like UiPath and, Coinbase and all of those. Obviously, that kind of fell off a complete cliff. Then you had what I'd call
how's your crypto portfolio doing?
I don't have one because I saw that and I was like, this is stealing from Peter to pay Paul. I don't like this. And then COVID was the most mental for venture capital because of two reasons. One, you had such enormous shifts in people behavior. So you could implement businesses that would take 5 years to execute in 6 months, and money was totally free. At some point, oil went negative in price. So we have unlimited money to throw. That, lo and behold, to everyone, went off a total cliff after everyone went back to work. And people were like, oh, every single meeting is now going to be online. Is it? But you do have the deaths of things like WeWork and those kinds of companies. But now is the true cycle of AI. And I look at these cycles, you can look at cycles for longevity versus hype. And longevity to me is that it fundamentally helps. So I'm still not sold on crypto. Crypto to me only fundamentally helps get around laws. So it's great if you're a criminal or you want to dodge tax.
Yeah.
I don't... Just for everyone listening to this, I actually know the VCs who own 50% of crypto markets. So that is not decentralized at all. That is very centralized, and they play the monopoly game. So for anyone listening who goes, oh, it's totally free. It isn't. It isn't. It's unregulated. Anyway, then we come on to AI. And to me, AI this year, what it didn't in terms of the algorithms going on leaps and bounds, they didn't. They went on their normal trajectory. What happened is that suddenly everyone got it. And they realized that they could save 5 hours of work and do it in 20 minutes and have a bit of fun while doing it.
Yeah.
And then that triggered everyone to go, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. That
to me was the biggest thing.
Yeah. Before we go full AI, because I feel like we could talk the rest of the show AI. where do you see, you mentioned free money during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're a little bit tighter purse strings. I would say over the last 1.5, 2 years, I haven't seen the influx of startups that I saw in the previous 3 or 4 in the construction space specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see, and maybe it could be my, just being naive, not, I think I was probably maybe researching a little bit more there, but I do I see, I try and stay in the market looking for startups, looking for new, construction technology tech. I still see quite a few popping up in the lean space and in some of these spaces where they're basically replicating a software or process that currently existed and just kind of making it look a little bit snazzier, adding in another function that may not be in the previous service. But I don't see any really true tech companies coming up. I guess 2 questions. One, where do you see in the next 2 years construction tech, venture capital? And is my hypothesis or what I'm seeing, are you seeing it? And then 2, is there anything interesting outside of shout out nodes and links that you're seeing in the market that people could be interested in?
Yeah. So on the first, there's a couple of reasons. You're right. I haven't seen any crazy startups coming up, and I think that's actually because of 2 or 3 reasons. Number one, all of the players who are currently kind of dominating started half a decade ago. Yep. And it takes a level of time where it's just 1, 2 people in a dorm room messing around, and then it starts to grow and grow, and that's the story of Nodes and Links and others. Half a decade ago, some forward-thinking venture capitalists plus a couple of founders were sitting there going, AI and automation hasn't touched project management. Let's go with it. So there was actually a wave then, and now we're seeing those companies getting to a level of scale. Now, if you think about it, if you're a VC coming into that, it's relatively it's the name of the game to try and tackle the incumbent by flipping their strategy and business model on its head. So, naming no names, if you've got established players who are like guarded barriers and terrible commercial conditions and beating you down with price increases, then it's like, okay, totally open, really nice commercial, and keep the price consistent so that it actually decreases over time with inflation. And it's like, but if you already have companies doing that, how are you any different? And by the way, they've got 5 years more experience than you. So that's in like the microcosm I exist in. Obviously, Procore and Aconex were that back in the noughties. So that's 2010, and they're getting to scale now. Obviously, Aconex got bought out by Oracle. Procore stayed in venture capital and private equity land, and when I last looked, it was worth $10 billion. Then
they went public too, I thought.
Yeah, I think they've gone public now.
Yeah.
Then you went through the teens, like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and it was all about construction tech. So, there's a lot of companies that do cameras on your forehead, recording, LiDAR, radar, all of this for progress tracking. And there's a million and other of them. And basically that's automating QAs and other elements and a lot of site operations. And then in the 18, 19, 20 zone is when the ones tackling project management came out. So you've just kind of got to think. So reason number one is they're already very well-funded, very disruptive companies in a niche, and the company fights the incumbent, you don't want them to fight each other in that regard, because it's just a destruction of value, essentially.
Yeah.
The second component is the interest rates. So think about this. The whole goal of venture capital is to triple your money over a period of 10 years. And the business model that they do of that is they'll get 20 companies. They'll put money into all 20. They'll put half of their money split across 20. And then the ones who look like they make it, they'll give their other half of the money so they gear themselves to success. One of them makes it, and that one that makes it is worth hundreds of millions or billions of dollars and gives them back the triple that they spent on everything. 5 out of the 10 never make it. A couple kind of half make it, but are like decent businesses, but won't return. But the one returns all the money. Now, in a period of zero interest, the barrier to tripling your money is much, much lower than in an environment where you've got 5% compounded for 10 years. So it's like, well, there just aren't that many really good companies. Like, there's lots of people who want to give it a go, but a smaller segment of that are really, really, really good companies. So it's like, it's this thing where venture capitalists find it harder to raise money because people are adjusting their portfolios because of all the like sticking loads more in bonds because of the risk and this kind of stuff. So there's a deficit of money, and then the barrier that the venture capital companies have to hit is higher. So essentially, but like you might hear that and go, okay, well that makes total sense. Capitalism, the money goes to where it's best used, and you're like, yeah, and it makes total sense. But what it does is you got to think about this. The NASDAQ, like something crazy, like 80% of the NASDAQ, or I think even the S&P 500, it's like 50% of the value of the S&P 500 was driven by venture-backed tech companies.
Yeah.
Like the Googles, the Facebooks, all of these.
That.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. So it's like, whilst the venture capital markets might seem large, they are really small beans compared to the big mainstream industries.
Yeah.
But the venture capital space feeds the mainstream industry for global competition, and it feeds it for future innovation and value. So it's leveling off right now, but what you'll actually, there'll be total explosion of innovation in the next 5 years, because those were the companies funded when interest was zero. And then what you might see is a total like crash of innovation as we get into like 2030 because of this period right now. These companies they're just not starting, they're not trying, etc.
Yeah. So
a very long, detailed answer, but there you go.
I'm sure people will just put you at like 2x speed and it'll go by in like 30 seconds.
There you go. Yeah, do it.
If you are interested in venture capital, there's a really cool book called The Power Law that does a history of venture capital, starting at the beginning, going all the way through. I'll put a link of it in the show notes. But the one thing you brought up that's super interesting that I think people could take away in their lives as they start to think about things, everyone's always heard about the 80-20 rule. The 20% of results came from 80%, right?
Yep.
What I love about venture capital is they take that to an extreme level of extremeness that is absolutely amazing. So as you mentioned, most of these shops, one or two companies out of the thousands and thousands and thousands they invest in secure most of their gains. If you look at it, if you had invested in Google or Facebook or whoever it is, you hit the cash cow. To me, that's where, and I spoke a lot about it in 2023, and it still is always on the forefront of my mind. Exponential gains are something that are super hard to grasp for human beings, but you need to understand them because they can help you personally. They can help you in your job. They can help your company. It's that old saying to me where you can only cut so much money, but your ability to gain is infinite. And when you think about exponential gains, it's mind-boggling. And the personal sides of it is, if you improve, 1% per year, you end up improving, overall, I don't know, whatever the scale is, it's like 36% over the entire year, right? If you invest in the stock market, over a certain period of time, like it just outpaces everything. When I look at construction scheduling and planning, if you improve one or two things systematically and you're doing loads of projects over time, that's exponential gains because you get that return on investment every single year. And that can be something as simple as standardizing your code, standardizing your milestones. And
Mhm.
it's
There's
often lost. Oh, go ahead.
You know, I've recently had my first child. My daughter's born. I've actually already started like writing the things that I really want her to know that I've learned over a long period of time. And the thing that you just said, which is think in power laws, not in linear numbers. That is the largest. I've met a lot of billionaires. I'm not one, but I've met a lot because they play in the venture capital space. That is entirely
That
how
sweater
they think.
you're wearing.
They don't.
That sweater you're wearing, you're going to make the audience not be sure with that sweater you're wearing. They're like, whoa, man.
Well, first of all, this has got
Greg
Thunderbird 1 on it. This is Thunderbird 1, and my mum knitted this for me. So
I mean, did she use fine cashmere, single sourced, where they pet the alpacas?
To be honest, it's my mum, so she might have done. I'm not too sure. Like my mum's pretty. I only get the best. But they think in power laws, and I'll give you two examples. I'll give you one that I've just implemented in my company, and I'll give you one that I've already given them the gift. I called some friends up in the project scheduling consulting world 3 months ago, and I told them this. So they've had their head start. Like, information's free, it's about execution. So the first one in the company. So I have a young sales team, and part of their wages are fixed, part of them are variable, depending on how much success they have. What do you think is better? Being paid on how many customers you land, or being paid on the success of those customers?
I mean,
from earning, forget from like moral things, earnings, how much money you can earn.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's the second.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. So let's say one individual can land 5 new customers a quarter, something like that. I'm just pulling numbers out of the air for easy maths here. Okay, so let's say I pay them. Call it. I don't pay them this, but let's just go crazy. $50,000, so $10,000 each for a customer, something like that. Now let's say another person, and that's like, could you land 50 customers in a quarter? No. To be honest, no. There's not enough hours in a day to do that in that process. But could you reduce it down to 2 customers and have those 2 customers have 10 times the success of the 5 because you've spent a lot of time making sure that you understand what success is and being able to measure it? Yes, you absolutely can do that. So you could go from a period of 5 to 20 to 50 or something. So you can earn 10 times the amount of money. In the project consulting world, here's some, again, venture capital finance stuff. Consultants are valued between about 0.8 and 1.2 of revenues. So if your consultancy is earning 100 million a year, it's worth about 100 million if a private equity person wanted to come in and buy it. Give or take, and there's the things that they pay, so long as the brand is company, not person. Because it's very hard to, if the person leaves, if Ronaldo leaves, then suddenly no one cares.
Right.
Tech companies are valued about 10 times revenues. 10. What do you think a tech-powered consultancy is worth?
10? Or do you think higher? It's
about 7 to 10. Yeah, it's about 7 to 10. And what I mean by a tech-powered consultancy is I mean a consultancy whose primary operations of either go-to-market, offer proposition, which it won't be, or operations is technology delivery. So imagine if Acorn or Turner and Townsend got their act together, launched an AI or a tech proposition, and basically did a Palantir play.
Yeah,
they'd be worth 10 times as much money.
To me, the why behind that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is because a consultancy can't scale at the level a software company can. So they're going to have to constantly churn more bodies, get more people. That's more cost to the business, constantly be winning contracts. Other contracts are going away, to infinity.
You're totally correct, by the way. And it comes back to the power law.
Yep.
It doesn't matter about it. The capital investment almost doesn't matter. This is why venture capital works. The marginal cost of sale matters. So if you invest 100K in designing a proposition and then you have people deliver it, cool. You might earn 100K, but the person costs 80K and you're limited by how many people you can hire and train and scale and all that. And basically it breaks on the entire motion. If you invested 20 million to build the technology, that technology can then be accessed instantly without people having to be in the loop, then actually very, very quickly there comes a point where even selling that technology at a low price far blows above the earnings of the consultancy. So whereas a consultancy might be sitting on 100 million in revenue, that consultancy would be making 5-10 million profit a year, that kind of thing, pushing on the owners relatively happy. But if a tech company is sitting at 100 million and they turned off their growth engine and they just sat and said, we're happy with this, they'd be making 50-60 million a year. Hence why 5 to 50-60, it's about 10 times valuation.
Nice. Switching gears a little bit, and we're getting long on show, so I'll have to wrap it up shortly, even though we could waffle here for hours. Speaking of switching gears and being content, I know most people out there are in $100 million tech companies. What are your thoughts on 2024, people looking to transition, people setting goals? Do you do any of that? Like, how does that, as you start to come close to the end of the year, how do you do your goal setting?
Oh, I'm a hard goal setter. I write them on my whiteboard right next to me all year.
Do you set specific goals, or do you have value? Like, because there is a whole level.
I do not. So I've done everything under the sun and tried and tested it myself, and all I can speak to is myself. What I found is best is doing OKRs, so objectives and key results. So I'll have an objective to be healthier, and then I'll be like, right, how do I define this? Blah, blah, blah. What I do is I come down to a weekly cycle. Like, all of these goals to me become a weekly cycle. So it's like, how on a Tuesday when I'm tired and I didn't get a good night's sleep because of the baby, what do I need to do? And I could literally just look and go, right, well, today I have to do a gym session. I have to, write something with Micah for the audience, whatever it is. And I have to, read. And so I do it like this. And it just makes it actionable. I think 2024 is a year for me where people can be thinking, how do I double or triple my earnings potential in scheduling and project management within 2 or 3 years? That's kind of the question that I'd be setting for people. And by the way, you know this, but the audience don't. My brother's done it. We taught my brother to do it. Oh, I played a small part in doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
My brother's in the 200K club now, and he's just turned 30.
Got to buy some Sea-Doos. Jet skis. Yeah. That's where it's at, baby. You make that money, you burn that money. We're not financial advisors here. We don't help you with your budget. I'm a proponent of dollar in, dollar out, baby. You see this sweater? These Christmas tacos don't come for free.
I can tell you've never lived in the north of England where the sea is so cold.
No, man. Wetsuits, baby. Wetsuits. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Wetsuits. That's not a happy
place to go jet skiing.
Yeah, the sharks. To me, the goal setting's always been interesting for me. And I've actually transitioned over the years to where I did do objectives and key results And we'll put some links in the show notes. It's a very tried and true practice. I've actually transitioned more to values, and then matching my values to, I think about it in either 1 hour or 10-year cycles. And so your exact same example of like going to the gym. Well, I have a value of, I really want to be healthy and have longevity so I can play with my kids and last longer. And I think strength training is going to be a piece of it, because as you get older, you start losing your strength, and that's one of the things that actually limits your mobility and quality of life. So I'm thinking in that like 10, long year time cycle of like, that's kind of my value and where it's rooted at. And then I think in hour long chunks of like, what would be the best use of my time in this hour? And to me, that would be, okay, let's go get that gym session in. And that's kind of how I done 2023, because I used to do, the calendar blocking and the to-do lists and all this stuff. And it just like after a while, to me, and everyone's different, and in different cycles, I will hammer down and change how I approach it. And sometimes I approach my personal life different than my professional life. But sometimes all that stuff just gets in the way to me. It's like, if it's not, high level enough to where it's just kind of overall driving my approach, and then it's not tactical enough, and I'm like spending too much time managing a system, it doesn't really work for me.
The other thing as well is I find that my natural brain wants to live in today. It's an effort to live in tomorrow. So if I'm doing actions all the time which are investing and growing the future, at some point the brain and the body is just like, just shut up and just live in the moment and enjoy it. So for me, there's a very fine balance between, all of the learning that we need to do and just having fun and, spending time with the family and, to be honest, enjoying the job, just turning up some days and doing some meetings and, clocking in and out. But those can be the exceptions, not the rule.
Yeah. Well, and I'll close it out in my final thought and say that one of the ways, there are many ways to double your earning potential, triple your earning potential. Most people think it's through, I need to go back and get a college degree. I need to go get a specification of some sort. I need to go get a certificate of some sort. But to me, you can triple your earning potential through people. Go figure out and help people and make people feel good about themselves, make people feel good about what they're doing, go solve their problems. And you'll find that's a superpower in of itself. You don't need to pay $200 to get a certification that thousands of other people already have. If you go out and help people, you're going to get, that's going to come back to you massively. And so I completely agree with you. 2024, go make some more money, right? Go spend that money, go buy some jet skis and some wetsuits. And as you go through and do that, look to help people out. Look to see on your projects where people need support and assistance, and be that person who chips in.
I completely agree. And actually, just to reiterate and just to say to people here, just to give a perspective, if you're paying tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands for education to give you future earning potential, that is a very big investment. And it's a very long time horizon. Yes, it works, but some people it doesn't. Micah's point, if I would identify the project director or like the senior or someone and say, I want to get better and progress. I want to increase the amount I can earn. I'm willing to do this, this, and this. And look, I've already tried to do something for you. Can you just sit down with me for 10 minutes a week and just teach me what you know, so that maybe one day I can put myself in that position? And you know what? Most people would go, yeah, sure, because it's fun to pass on to others. Like, that costs nothing but your time. So you're not going thousands and thousands of dollars into some kind of debt to get then a certificate that, to be honest, most people don't really care about.
One last thing
say.
Would be, Kevin, who's sitting next to you, is a cost analyst. And instead of going and paying someone money to figure out how to be a cost analyst, go talk to Kevin. You want to go learn contracts? Walk down the hall and talk to Jill. Jill has been doing contracts for 30 years. Go figure out from her. And you can learn those lessons while you're at work and broaden your horizon at work. And don't get trapped in that cubicle.
So that was a very random session. I wonder what time it will come to when we do a little bit of cutting. But if you enjoyed this kind of format, let us know. Let us know with a like or a comment, or send us a message. And if there's things that you'd like us to talk about, send those through too, because we do actually talk about them. So with that, I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful end to their year. Micah and I are going to be taking some time off over Christmas, but we'll be back straight again in the new year, hitting it hard again. I hope you all have a fantastic time with whoever you're with, whatever family you're with. And we'll see you over in 2020.